Hi folks, welcome back to Green Iron TV. Today we're going to be working on an M725 ambulance. But if you look real close, you are going to notice this is not the same M725 ambulance that we've been working on in the last few episodes that we've been doing the restoration on. This is actually my older M725 ambulance, one that I restored way back in 2013. We recently had this vehicle out for a nice little cruise, and while out on the drive, it ruptured the oil line on the back of the motor. So, pretty notorious problem for these vehicles. It's a rubber line that runs an oil up to the back of the camshaft to help oil number 6 cylinder. And of course, after 50 plus years, that rubber line deteriorated, got brittle, cracked, and blew out. So we're going to be replacing that. It is not a fun project because you have very little room between the back of the block and the firewall. So you have to kind of position yourself and lay over top of the motor and really do a lot of this by feel because you really don't have a good way to get eyes on it. So we're going to get started on that project. We're going to get the old line off, have a new line made, and then do the big struggle of getting it all put back together and running. So stay tuned. That's what's coming up. Okay, folks, these 230 motors have an oil line that comes out of the back of the head and runs down to the sending unit on the side of the block. They attach via a brass 90-degree elbow into the back of the head. So to work on this, the first thing we're going to have to do is remove the hood, which will allow us to have better access to get down in to get behind the motor where this oil line runs down. Removing the hood is as simple as taking the 4 bolts at the hinge off and disconnecting the wire that runs to the blackout light mounted on the top edge of the hood. With the hood removed, you can see just how tight it is between the back of the block and the firewall. Reaching your hands down in there to get at this is going to be a very tight and tricky situation. First, we're going to remove the oil line from the fitting on the back of the pressure sending unit on the side of the block. This is done to give us access to be able to flex the line and be able to pull it up and rotate it around the back of the motor once we have the fitting at the back of the block loose. That's certainly fun. Now you can stick a 1/2-inch wrench down behind the back of the motor from the top and get onto the fitting, where you can then turn to loosen the oil line. You will then use the leverage of spinning the whole entire oil line to spin the line and the fitting out together as one unit. And here is the new line we had made at the local parts store. One thing we had to do was shave down the fins where it was crimped to get just a little more room to be able to spin it in the back of the block. All right, folks. So at our local parts store, they build hydraulic lines, and so I was able to have them match some fittings and be able to build us a replacement for the one that was in there. So the one on the bottom, they had one that was on a 45, was the only size they had available left in that, which isn't going to work out too terribly bad because the hose actually does bend up that way. So we did save the fitting off the back of the motor that was originally on here. So we're going to reuse that 90-degree fitting. And to install this, There's a couple different thoughts and ways to do it. The way I'm going to try and do it is I'm actually going to install it as parts. I'm going to install the 90-degree angle into the back of the motor, get it started, get it in several good thread turns, and then leave it in a position where I can then take the new hydraulic line, get down to it, and then thread it in and get it tightened that way, and then be able to rotate this into its final position down and then hook in at the bottom. So that's the plan as of right now. Otherwise, you're left with trying to thread this whole entire thing behind the motor and get it to spin around and get it started without wallowing out the brass fitting. So I think it's going to be much easier if we do it as a separate piece. This, just having this will give us a lot less to work off of. Be a little easier to get it fit started and get it in there. So that's the plan as the moment. So we're going to get all set up and we're going to crawl back up on the engine here and get started on this and hopefully get this line all finished up and working. So probably not going to have too much video because you can't really see much. Heck, I can't even see to put it in. It's all going to be by blind feel off the back of the motor. So we'll get what we can get, and hopefully that'll be able to illustrate to you guys how to replace this oil line. So stay tuned. All right, and we got the oil line back on. The motor filled with oil again, started, ran, and at this point we have no drips. That's a good thing. And we're going to go ahead and get everything buttoned back up and get the hood back on. And we're going to call this one done on the OG original 67 ambulance that I had. So one of the things that recently happened was the spot welds, there's only 4 little spot welds originally here along the back, on the back of the driver's seat in the 725 ambulance. Those 4 spot welds all broke, leaving this piece loose and flopping around. So we took the piece off. I let my son Zachary break out the welder, and we put a couple nice little beads across there. Have that all nice and tightened in now. And now we can put the seat cushion back on it and have this driver's seat all set back up. All right, folks, that should wrap up the oil line replacement on the M725 ambulance. Now that same oil line does run on the back of the 230 motor that is in the M725 cargo truck and the M726 maintenance trucks. So we can use this tip to work on any of those 3 vehicles. So it was a fun project. Not really. It was a real pain in the butt. You spent a lot of time in a very awkward position doing something where you couldn't even completely see what you were doing, trying to do it all by feel. So for those of you that do brave this project, don't get frustrated. Take your time, work at it, and you'll be able to get it done, no problem. So thanks for tuning in. We want to remind you to like, subscribe, and leave comments. We love to hear from all of you. So thanks again, and have a good night.